Hey champions, this is James Wright from Martial Arts and More. Today we're going to have a little interview or a little talk about being a first-time gun owner, things that you should know, things you should be aware of. I know that gun sales right now are going through the roof because of this whole coronavirus thing. So I have a friend here from Patriot Tactical. Go ahead and introduce yourself and say what you guys do there.
All right. Hey everyone, my name is Jacob Donnenwirth. Work for PatriotTac. What we do is training both with general awareness stuff and mostly with firearms. We have fundamentals of pistol marksmanship. We have the Concealed Carry Handgun course for North Carolina, and then we also offer some handgun tactics courses and rifle, carbine, and shotgun courses.
Okay, awesome. So I know the video is going to be talking about a lot of people that don't have weapons or firearms. So if during this crisis stuff, I know that's a big thing. So what is something that you've never fired before, you never owned a gun? What are things that somebody that's interested in starting, what do they look for? How do they know what to buy?
Well, it's just like buying a car, right? You got to get something that works for you. If you've never driven something big before, you've been in a two-door sedan your entire life, you go out and you buy a Ford Excursion, you try to parallel park that thing, you're going to have difficulties because it's not something you're used to, it's not something you're good at. And it's the same thing with buying a firearms. You want to test them, try them, see what you like, see what fits in your hand, see what caliber is comfortable for you, and importantly, on top of all that stuff is what are you accurate with. And if you don't have a skill set at all, training is super important right away. If you have a skill set like you've been in the military but you don't own any personal weapons, then you want to try to get something that fits good in your hand that you're accurate with, and you can work from there. But the option to go out and rent a gun, borrow a gun, buy a gun, all that stuff's really easy to do. And there's a couple of places around here like Sportsman's Lodge over on Route 17 that you can go rent a gun. They got an entire wall filled with pistols, shotguns, rifles that you can rent right there. And I believe the way it works is you have your time limit and you buy ammo. And if you want to switch from one 9mm to another 9mm and your time's not up yet, you just go switch and you put the bullets in a new magazine and you try that gun. So really it's a really awesome tool to be able to try a bunch of stuff, see what you like best, and then go ahead and purchase it.
That's a good point. Now, should I conceal carry?
Are you a sound and able-bodied, sound mind and able-bodied man who thinks it's important to be able to defend yourself and be able to defend innocent people and the people that you love? If the answer to that is yes, then yes. I personally, in my opinion, it's our God-given right to self-defense, and it's in the Constitution, which is awesome. That's why I love this country. But one of the reasons I love this country. I look at it as if you're a stand-up guy, if you have a good head on your shoulders, if you don't lose your cool and have a temper that needs work, and if you care about the people around you and you think that you should do something to protect them if something bad happens, yeah, absolutely. You should concealed carry. You should get training. You should get competent with that. So that way, if something bad happens, you can influence a bad event positively.
There you go.
I think it's almost a duty, in my opinion.
If you troll like the internet and say like, what's the best thing out there that somebody should buy for their first pistol? I know that there's going to be, all these, it's kind of like the martial arts in a sense, like my martial art is better than your martial art, and my this or whatever is better than yours. You're going to find the people that love a certain type of pistol and put down another one, and that one's for women and this or whatever. So you did mention that a little bit. So how do you pick what is good for you, and does it really matter if it's a Beretta, a Glock, 45, how do you tell? So you did mention a little bit, but how do you get more deep into it?
Well, really, a lot of that is personal preference. So one of the things that Chris and I both do over at PatriotTac is we go to shooting competitions over in Hubert at Flatwoods. They do have these ZSA matches, Zombie Shooters Association.
Oh, awesome.
Whole lot of fun. A whole lot of cardboard gets put down. So when we're there shooting those competitions, every make and model is out there. It is all about what do you feel competent with, what do you have a good skill set with, what do you like to shoot, what fits in your hand. Because you'll see everything from, a Generation 1 Beretta 92 from, you know, an 80s cop movie or an early 90s cop movie, right? All the way up to a Glock with a long slide that has 4 different colors on it and a magazine well extension and, you know, red dot sights on both sides for some reason. All kinds of crazy stuff out there. So, you know, really getting out there and trying a good number of guns is what's going to let you pick one that works for you. Glock is an easy name to throw out there, and I don't get paid to advertise for Glock, but Glock is kind of like the go-to, simple, reliable, out-of-the-box gun that lots of people like. Hey, look at that! I've seen one of those before, right? You know, I don't make money from Glock for advertising for them, but if you don't know anything about guns at all and you want something that's reliable and safe and is probably going to work even if you don't clean it for 1,000 or 2,000 rounds, Glock's not a bad one to go with.
Right.
That being said, the Glock is not the only type of firearm that I own. So personal preference.
Personal preference.
Yep.
So when somebody does buy one, a firearm, let's say they get a pistol and it costs X number of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that when I first bought mine, I didn't factor in. Now, obviously, you think, okay, yeah, I'm going to need bullets. So that's kind of an obvious, but didn't really know how much they cost or care or whatever. Just knew if I was going to have a firearm, I had to have the bullets. What other type things that might surprise people that they should think about or might have or add to their how much, you know, their budget to be prepared for?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things, and it's super important, so I'm not in order that I thought about, but in order of importance, if you're not going to have your gun on you at all times, you need a safe. Windows are easy to break. If your gun's sitting on the kitchen table and someone breaks a window when you're not home because you went somewhere where a gun wasn't allowed and you didn't have it in your car, you know, now you're out a gun and a bad guy has a gun. So it's 2 bad things that just occurred, right? So on top of that, in North Carolina, if a gun is accessible by a minor,
Bad day.
that's a misdemeanor. You know what I mean? So, you know, not to say you can't carry your gun while you're in your home and there are minors there, because that's secured. You have it, you're carrying it. But if a reasonable adult on a jury would say you didn't take the proper precautions to safeguard that weapon from a minor gaining access to it, a lawful minor, you know, because again, if the window gets broken, you don't have any kids, your friends don't have any kids, no kids come to your house, and someone breaks in and steal your gun, that's not the issue. We're talking about, you know, you have a toddler and your gun was left on the couch.
Come over.
You know, misdemeanor automatically. And then anything bad that happens with that gun is more crimes added on because of that initial crime where you didn't secure your firearm properly. So you need to have a plan. It's not just one of those things where it's like, cool, I got a gun now. What do I do with it? You know, you can get a biometric safe for not very much money. One of the ones where you swipe your fingerprint on top, or that you do the little combination. So you can do it in the dark where there's 4 buttons that fit your fingers. So you can do, you know, 1, 3, 2, 4,
So
or
you don't
whatever
need
your
like a
combo
little
is.
combination thing, you know, that you got to
Right. You don't need safe cracker goggles. So
what other type of things have to or come along with owning a firearm,
well,
cost-wise?
So you have the safe. If you're going to be traveling with it in your car, they make little safes for in your vehicle as well, because for it to be good, if you leave it in your vehicle, it's got to be in something that locks in a locked vehicle, right? So they make safes that attach to the frame of your seat, the frame up underneath there.
So
that way,
you have to take the frame of the seat with you.
right, unless you brought a torch, like I'm probably going to be back out of the bank in time to catch you. The safe for your home, huge thing. Car, also a big deal, because again, you don't want it to be stolen and end up in a bad guy's hands. Other things are holsters, and that's another big thing where if you just go buy one without, you know, trying it first, you're probably going to end up like my closet, which has a pile of holsters that I could outfit an entire army with a pile of holsters that I don't like to use that's in my closet because I bought a firearm and I got a holster because they had one and I wanted to carry it and shoot it at the next competition or go to the range and try it. And then I was like, man, this is really uncomfortable to sit down with, or this is really uncomfortable to bend over with, or this prints a lot. You know, when I carry it, my shirt sticks out like that because, you know, whatever the angle. So that's another thing where if you buy a gun that a bunch of your friends already have, ask them if you can borrow their holsters, and that will save you a couple
lot of
$100, $25 or $50 at a time. Buying a holster, trying it out, saying no, it's not what I wanted. And once you get the holster that you want, help your buddies out when they buy that gun.
There you
Hey,
go.
try this one.
So we got a holster, we got a safe, possible car safe, the bullets, of course.
Yep.
What else might be an expense?
The biggest and most important one, training. Training is a huge deal.
Why would you need training?
Well, I'll put it to you this way.
How hard is it? It's got a little thing. You do this.
The end with the hole.
You just gotta
points at the bad guy.
Yeah.
There you go.
What training? Do you
Man, there's so many reasons to train, and I'm talking to a martial arts audience. It's a lot easier to relate than someone who doesn't compete or learn self-defense or do any of the other things that we do as martial artists. Think about it like preparing for a tournament, right? If you have a kata or sparring that you just got promoted, now you're in a new belt level in your next tournament coming up. How many times is enough to practice your form? How many times is enough, or how much time is enough that you feel good about your sparring? And are you going to perform well at the tournament? The only difference is self-defense is not a tournament that you register for 6 months in advance.
Right.
It's a pop quiz. You know what I mean? So training as much as you can, as often as you can, as much as you can afford reasonably, is the only way to have the most readiness that you can when that pop quiz arrives.
And it's not necessarily that's going to be the most expensive thing like today, because you can get a private lesson or take a course, but over time, whether you always have that one firearm or if you get a bunch, that's a continuation. It's kind of like everything else. It's something, if you don't use it, you lose it kind of deal. Yeah. And it was a good analogy with the martial arts stuff. And I do think some of the stuff in martial arts is going to go off on a little bit of a tangent, but I know these incredible black belts in different styles of martial arts, and then they open up their own school and the school fails. And it's like you have all these coaches to make you really good at martial arts, and whether it was flexibility or nutrition or whatever the coaches that you had, and you recognize that you need a coach to get good, but then they don't get a coach for business, and then they go out of business because they don't know how to run the business.
Right, it's exactly the same.
If don't have, I call it the alpha male syndrome. I don't need that. I could do it myself. I could do all that on my own. It's you get a weapon, and even if you're a military guy or a cop or something like that, that's great that you get that training. But when you get out, again, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's good to continue on.
It's a perishable skill for sure. And as
you get older, things change when you have to.
There you go. You might be looking at getting a red dot sight instead of keeping the iron sights or whatever. But yeah, it's a constant thing. It's always evolving. My dad told me when I was a kid, if you are the best and you stop trying to get better, you will not be the best for very long.
That's true.
So, in the unfortunate, reality that is a potential gunfight, if you are not the best that day, you don't get to go home to your family.
True.
So how seriously should I take training? As seriously as I can. And it doesn't have to be, like you were saying, it doesn't have to be $1,200 4-day courses in Nevada. It doesn't have to be $1,600 courses somewhere else, expensive and fancy. If you Patriot Tac obviously teaches fundamentals courses and more advanced courses, but if you don't come to us, if you just go to someone else and you are safer and more competent with your firearm, society wins.
Is YouTube a tool to use?
I'm going to relate it to martial arts again, right? Anybody is qualified to have a YouTube channel. So, is YouTube a good reference and a good source of information? It absolutely is, if you listen to the right people.
There you go.
So it needs to have a common sense.
It's easy to find that out too.
Right.
So there are. You can learn from YouTube. I remember when I started jiu-jitsu, and people would make fun of learning jiu-jitsu through a video, like, oh, you can't, you got to do it and stuff. And there's aspects of that's true. Like you can't get timing of the moves from watching a video, but you absolutely can learn the moves from a video, and it's going to depend on how good the instructor is and how detailed that they go. So again, before we talked, I looked up YouTube, all this stuff, and there is a plethora of information out there. So when you decide on the weapon that you want, then you can look up those videos and then find somebody that's credible. It's not difficult to do that.
Right.
And then you can watch videos that'll help, and then take the
and
courses.
I can't tell you the amount of times where if I had a new gun and I was trying to take it apart to clean it and I got stuck, I would pull up a YouTube video and look at, hey, how is this supposed to come apart? Make sure you watch the whole video before you start, though, because if it's part 1 of 2 disassembly and it turns out there is no reassembly part, now you're going to take all your pieces to your local gunsmith and ask for help and look silly in the process. But no, YouTube's a great resource. Watch the whole video, see if that person has a common sense approach, see if what he's saying makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
and
if
then watch a couple of them to see if they're congruent.
Right.
Because if some guy is way out there and that's the one that you follow, then you're going to be missing some information.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to Handgun Fundamentals 1, a 2-minute YouTube class where I'm going to show you how to shoot like John Wick.
Point like this.
I'm going to show me how to shoot like John Wick in 2 minutes. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's an instructor that's that good.
So when next question here, when you get a firearm, are you the only one that's allowed to use that, or does somebody else have to have like a concealed carry or a license or something like that to use that weapon?
So to carry it out in public, right? Obviously, the person who has a concealed carry handgun permit is the only person who's supposed to carry it around. However, it is our God-given right to be able to defend ourselves. So if you find yourself in a situation where, if you're carrying and something bad happens when we're together in public and you are then disabled and you can't use that to protect us, can I pick it up and legally defend our lives? Yeah. Granted, we're accepting that the whole thing is a life or death situation and we're the victims.
We're not lawyers.
Right. Definitely not.
So if I have a range at my house or something like that, I can have my grandkids come over. Well, mine are like 1 and so probably not them. But if they're like within reasonable age to shoot, is that legal, illegal?
So there is an age, and I can't remember off the top of my head. 11 is on the brain, but I don't know if that's correct. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and I will defer to check your local and state laws. But there's an age that it might be 11. Well, I'm going to say 11 for the rest of the conversation as if it were, because I can't remember exactly. But if a kid is 11 years old or younger, for them to legally use a firearm, me, the firearm owner, should be their guardian or should have written permission from their guardian to let them use it. And I need to be within arm's distance to be able to control the firearm and control the kid for that kid to use it. So that means that, if Johnny's 8 and we go deer hunting, I can't leave him with a shotgun in a deer blind and go, try to push a deer out in front of him. He can use that gun in his deer blind at 8 years old, but I have to be there with him. And preferably I'm his guardian or I have written permission.
Right, so you can't have the neighborhood kids come over and start shooting things.
Probably not, right? Unless you got like the whole list of signatures from the neighborhood parents.
Okay. So, and the bottom line with that one is going to be, because this is going to be on YouTube, and somebody that's not in North Carolina is going to see it. So you got to look up the laws for that state that you're in.
Yeah. And even different counties sometimes.
There you go.
Or city ordinances will say, hey, this is going to be stricter than, or this is going to be less lenient or more lenient than.
So you got to look up the laws in your area so you know if you're staying within those laws.
What you cannot do is purchase a gun with the intent of not keeping it. That's called a straw purchase, and that's a huge deal. That's a felony. Go to jail for a long time. Go to prison for a long time.
So you can't go and buy the gun and then wrap it up and then give it to your spouse for Christmas.
That is correct.
That would be bad day.
That is correct.
Right.
Depending on how well you know the guys at the gun store, maybe you could pay for it. Maybe they could pre-fill out the paperwork that has a serial number and stuff. Maybe you could wrap it and they could sit behind the counter. But your spouse still has to go do the background check, do the NICS check. So the NICS check is going to be for rifles and shotguns in North Carolina anyway. And then for pistols, you will need either a pistol purchase permit or you will need your concealed carry handgun permit to be able to get the pistol.
Okay. If you're considering buying a firearm, there are some very specific safety rules that you should know, memorize, or be aware of before you start doing anything. You want to talk about safety rules?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I was in the military for a while. So the military is for basic safety rules, and then a fifth one that kind of hangs out in the background that isn't, in the official 4, but it's, the first 4, treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot. Keep your fingers straightened off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and keep the weapon on safe until you intend to fire. And that 5th one that hangs around that isn't on all the printouts, but you have to think about it, is know your target and what's behind it and what's in front of it. So
that's something that a lot of people don't consider.
Yeah.
So like when I do carry and I'm with like my wife, what side do I want her on?
Right.
Where do I want to place her if somebody's in front of me? Like you said, who's behind them?
Right.
The same thing if I have the kids with me and stuff like that. I always got to be aware of where I'm standing versus where they're standing, and point of view. So anything else you want to add?
On the safety thing, I'm going to add one more. A Jacob Donnenwirth safety rule is be deliberate. If you're too scared to be deliberate, if you're going too fast to be deliberate, if something's going on to where what you're doing with a firearm can't be deliberate, you need to slow down, calm down, do something different.
That's a great rule. So how do you make the decision or have that skill in order to be deliberate?
Not to beat a dead horse, but you need to train. You need to get training.
Nobody likes that. Nobody likes that answer. Don't
Yeah.
know why.
Yeah. Well, it involves the most work.
I can't take a 45-minute self-defense course and then be able to defend myself against anybody?
Probably not. Probably not.
So I can't get a weapon, get my concealed carry, and then be able to defend against anybody that comes after me?
You'd have to be super lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super lucky. So training. Nobody likes the answer for some reason, but need the training and then enjoy the training. Have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I would add to probably be good to join some kind of group that would support the Second Amendment and that would have different training, different maybe even competitions or just social thing that you can go and shoot different firearms, stuff like that, just so you're staying active in that community and it doesn't sit in your safe for any length of time where you lose that skill of
right. And as far as training goes, the reason that Chris and I are always at those ZSA matches is because it puts you under a little bit of pressure, and it's always different. So when you go to the range, lots of ranges don't let you come from the holster and shoot. Lots of ranges don't let you move and shoot. Lots of ranges don't want you to rapid fire. So there are some fundamental skills that you can work on, but the follow-on stuff to get more competent in a more realistic scenario, you can't really do there. So outside of paying $1,500 and going to a 5-day course, if you go to a competition, which we do, pre-corona was almost every weekend over in Hubert, there's still some range days that go on. We just got to obviously...
Just got to stay 6 feet apart.
Right. So, stuff like that still goes on over there, just not matches with 100 people showing up. And then at Sportsman's Lodge on the first and third Thursdays of the month, again, pre-corona, there are matches then as well. And it just gives you that little bit of nerves when you're on the spot that gets you a little bit closer to that stress of real life. You can't obviously train for a real life shootout with real life shootouts. That's illegal and immoral, right? But you can find something to incrementally ramp up your skill sets and your skill sets under stress, which is something that competitions do for you. So it has a lot of good, not just competitive benefits, but real world application benefits. Being able to do something with 10 people watching, your heartbeat starts going, you come up with a plan, the timer starts, you forget.
Beads of sweat.
Yeah. No one's even said go yet, So that's a really good, inexpensive way to train, and it's a lot of fun. So that's definitely my go-to a lot of the time.
All right. Good stuff. Well, appreciate you coming out and doing this little interview, and hopefully this is good for some of you out here and definitely the students at Martial Arts and More. I'm going to put some links on the bottom for some more training if you're local, and so you could meet them in person and go to PatriotTac, and I'll put their information in the description. And you guys have a good day.
Thanks for listening, guys. Who thinks it's important to be able to defend yourself and be able to defend innocent people and the people that you love.